Okay, so I think we can get started, and anyone else who's joining us will join us halfway. So welcome everybody, and thank you for, joining. I'm joining from Toronto, so it's about 2:04 p.m. here. I know a couple of, I think most people, every other person on this call is either on the GMT time zone or the Middle Eastern time zone, so it's much later where you are. So good evening, everyone. And welcome to the first of many sessions on navigating maternity. I'm super excited about this one, primarily because the author and the, should I say, the founder or the pioneer for this is my very good friend Isioma. And I will basically be driving the conversations today between myself and Isioma. We're going to be talking about starting a family, talking about pregnancy, as well as how that impacts our careers, how we think about it. I am super excited for this one, particularly because I am probably a guinea pig. So it's going to be real live conversations about, some of the key questions that we have about this subject. But before we get into the conversation, let me just, do a quick intro about who Isioma is. And I'm going to brag a little bit, so forgive me, Isioma. So, bragging moment, I have actually known Isioma for what now? 13 years and counting. We started out as professional colleagues in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. And then we moved on from that to being friends outside of work, talking about any and everything outside of work. And now we become family technically. And I seriously mean that because Isioma's sisters have become my sisters, and we don't know who gets the information first anymore. And I have the pleasure of introducing Isioma. So I'll be sharing a little bit about Isioma's bio. So Isioma is an accomplished operations leader. What she didn't mention here as well is she's also an SME when it comes to diagnostics within, oil and gas operations, incidents and learning, which is a very, very big deal in operations. She's had over 15 years of experience within the oil and gas sector, energy sector. I like to say that. And she's managed, multi-million dollar assets in joint venture, managing and driving transformational programs. And beyond her professional achievements, Isioma, since I've known Isioma, and I'm not just saying this, Isioma has been, we call her women leader. Let me just put it that way. We've always called Isioma women leader. So she's actually one of those people that I know personally that, is passionate. Like she lives advocacy for women's advancement, from the very young to, very experienced women in the professional workplace. And, all of that has been demonstrated through our involvement in, leaning. I don't know if, some of you know about leaning. Is one of the very popular global movements when it comes to equity amongst women. She started, a couple of leaning circles in Nigeria, and she was a member of the advisory board between 2022 and 2024, helping drive and set up leaning circles across the world. As part of this passion, like, so this is just telling you some of the things that have been birthed from this passion for women advancement. She co-founded Blazers and Babies. So basically, as the name is, Blazers Babies, Careers Moms. So it's a small community that started, locally in Nigeria, and is now thriving internationally with many circles, many, communities being formed around the world. And again, it's largely centered around, working mothers, supporting working mothers, through careers, peer circles, having those conversations that typically have not been had in past centuries, right? And so you can see that, all of the things she has done outside of work is actually centered on that passion she has for women, a contribution to the Women at Work curriculum for mothers, for leaning as well. Um, One thing I also want to mention, well, I think it must have been within your first 5 years working, in the energy, in one of the biggest IOCs in Nigeria. Isioma basically founded, pioneered the first like production women's network. Now, for people who are not familiar with the energy industry, the production department is very, very extremely male dominated. And it's a field where, people are required to be like hands-on on the field, hard hats coverall. So you can imagine, picture a pregnant woman in the field with wrenches, hard hats coveralls. So she actually pioneered the first production women's network, creating that space for women in those fields that are technically male dominated, to thrive, air issues that pertain to women and peculiar to women, and also generating allyship amongst the male leaders in that space. I can go on and on and on about because all of what is written here, I'm privileged to have, back office information about who Isioma is and what she's done in this space. And now, taking it a level further, which I mean, most of us probably think is long overdue. Isioma has now, started the Navigating Maternity series, which is comprised of, she's authoring a book, which has a conversation around preparing for maternity, a sequel that talks about what happens when you come back after maternity, and as well as an online course that you can actually sign up for to give you that foundational, the foundational, what will I call the foundational building blocks on how to prepare for maternity, things to think about. Um, Also, if you can go to the next slide for a bit, I just want to do a PR moment. There's a QR code on there on the screen that you can scan real quick. So yeah, the book, is going to be released later this month, and then you can scan to get the course or the book. So I'm going to give you guys, maybe 2 minutes to quickly scan this so that you have that on your phone, and then you can go in later and, get started after this conversation. Right. So that should take a quick second. Thank you very much. And then of course, if after this session you're still not able to access this, please feel free to, send a message on Instagram to Navigating Maternity, and the team will be happy to help you get set up, either to purchase the book or the course. So you're very welcome, Isioma. I'm giving you all the flowers you deserve because I know this is a labor of love. This is a labor of, trying to make the world a better place, much more than anything. So thank you for, for answering that call, more or less. And I'm looking forward to conversations we're going to have this afternoon. Going to be very, practical, tactical, candid conversations that, people can actually relate to. So I'm really looking forward to that. So welcome, Isioma.
Thank you, Taiwo. You really blindsided me with all those extra things. And I'm like, who's paying Taiwo for all this? I
Don't
almost jumped
worry.
out of my chair, but I just like, okay, let me see it. People are
Yeah.
here. But thank you. I look forward to the conversation we would have. I think it's the first of many, as you've said. Really, this is a labor of love. I try to run away from these women work, but I keep getting called back to it, like the work is not yet done. And I'm hoping that the those in the audience today contribute to the conversation. We plan to make it interactive. We're going to have a conversation between both of us, right, Taiwo, and then we'll have at the point where we can answer questions from the audience. So I want to just check that people are actually engaged. But I'm happy to be here. So for the next, is it 50 minutes we have? Let's see what we can tease out. Let's see what we can talk about it with navigating maternity.
So, thank you very much, Isioma. I'll start with my first question and then, we can take it from there. But I have just one question in mind. And again, sorry guys, I have too much background information. So, but when you look back, like, so one thing I also forgot to mention is Isioma has lived this journey. She's a mom of two girls, also navigating, cross-border international careers, growing family across borders, as well as growing her career, right? So she's lived these experiences. And so, you know, what she's done with the course and the book is sort of giving us things that she probably didn't have at the time when she started this journey. So a lot of it is from lived experiences. And so from that perspective, Isioma, if you went back to the beginning, before the two girls, before you started thinking of starting a family, because I mean, we're all ambitious. We want to, become the CEO of the Fortune 100s, right? But if you went back there, what is the one thing that you either wish you had known or something you think you would have done differently, given what you know now?
Wow, that's a really tough one to say one thing. The one thing, I think there are a couple of things, and I think that's why I had the second child to have a do-over. To have a chance to do things a bit differently. I think that with my with my with my first child, I think I was too worried about my career. I think I spent a lot of time thinking about what people would think, what people would say. I think I carried the whole thing around women slowing down. I think I took it too personally. So I was hurrying to like run back from maternity and get back to work. That was like a key priority for me then because I felt like I'll be, left behind or I was fulfilling a stereotype. So, or I was fulfilling a narrative that oh, women would slow down after pregnancy. But I wish that, someone actually, one older guy spoke to me about it and he was like, oh, don't make any compromise, treasure this moment. But I think because he was older and he was a guy, I felt like, oh, this guy just wants me to end up being slow. Assuming I got something from someone that was like my peer or just a little bit older than me that just helped me ground it. But that was it. The environment in the workplace just seemed like it was going to leave me behind and dump me if I slowed down or listen to what my body was asking me to do. I think that was something I would have taken more time with my maternity leave. I should have even taken some extra months because then it was 3 months. I should have taken 3 more months of paid leave to just bask in the beauty of, I mean, in what the body needed to fully recover. Yes, that's what I would have done
Well,
differently.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But I think from what you said, do you feel like, some of these, you know, ideologies or conditionings that we had to do, was there a cultural um factor that played into some of the, mindsets and ideologies that you had, going into being a career person and also trying to be a parent, a mom, in the workplace? Like, how do you think that must have shaped some of those things that you went through?
I think there's the cultural aspect because the broad cultural positioning on women and the place of women in the society in West Africa within at least the 2000s was not great. So it felt like if, okay, you being in the workplace was still an anomaly, like you going the extra mile. And then in the workplace, coming into the workplace, and then first you're not seeing anyone pregnant doing any active thing around. You're then not seeing enough women around you, and men don't carry bombs aside from, the pot belly. So you, automatically, it just feels like being pregnant is wrong or doesn't fit in this space because we actually learn from our brain, whether we like it or not, consciously or subconsciously, is learning up from what you see. So imagine coming to work for maybe 2 years straight and not setting your eyes on any pregnant woman. So automatically for the 20, I was in my mid-20s, it just felt like, oh my God, you've been caught now. So it's it is, or you see some women and they're like, oh, they're back from the maternity leave, but they're not doing interesting jobs. And so you think, I don't want to do this kind of job. So I think there's the role of the overall society culture and then the role of your immediate workplace and the people you see around you. And I think it can fuel some narratives. It can make you get very defensive, like I did, because I think I played defensive. Or it can actually make you try to be part of that fabric or just take the slow thing and all that. But there was really nothing excitingly positive out there about a woman pregnant and working. Yeah.
Fair enough. And I mean, selfishly, I would probably just say that, I'm so happy that you have gone, so steps ahead of me on that. So I just feel like I'm just like I'm just going the whole world taking notes. I'm just even not figuring anything out. So thank you for walking the path ahead of
And I
me.
think and I
On
think
this.
that was why I think I tried to walk the path boldly. And when I keep reflecting, even if my first child is 12 years now, I still feel a lot of women are still making the same mistakes. I still think a lot of women are not getting the support they need at the right time. I think timing is everything, and that's why I wrote the book to see if I can get it, because you can't mentor everyone, you can't be friends with everyone, you can't. So if I can get this across women so that they have the right conversation, because I think what's 5 years, I think I'd already had my two kids before I then started really finding out a lot of research about how important that first year of a child's life is to the child as an adult. And I was like, can you imagine? Most people don't know this, and they're making decisions based on career experiences that within a year or two you can recover from. And meanwhile, any decision you make in that first year of your child's life can affect the child as an adult, and even the first 6 years of your child's life can affect the child as an adult. So a lot of women don't know that, and we carry most of the career decisions too personally, take a lot of anxiety into the pregnancy and get unnecessary anxious. Also, some people in the workplace don't know that, so they put a lot of pregnant women under a lot of pressure, like under a lot of pressure, passive aggression, all those things, and it can make her anxious and impact also the child, right? The child's hormones. So it's a very interesting dynamic that I thought it would be good to highlight for our generation, and make it more accessible, so that when we're making that decision, when those anxious thoughts come, we know what to do with it, and we always know what's more important at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's you and
I
the
think I
baby, not your
agree.
career. Sorry.
Yeah. But we gotta pay the bills this summer. But that's it. But thanks for that. Like, thanks for that. And I think, thinking about it is, some of the things that like on that tone of that is, even we, like the women themselves, need to be equipped with a certain level of knowledge and awareness of, what it means to get into, motherhood and the realities of career workplace, because that is usually the starting point to actually get others on board, you know, from what you're saying, right? And, a lot of what you're doing with the courses, the books, the conversations, is giving women those tools to say, okay, you should actually know this, because what you don't know, you can't ask for technically, or you can't even teach people, because some people are honestly, they mean well, but they're just ignorant. And
Mhm.
that's just what it is, right? So I think, that starting point, but again, I'm just still grateful that, yeah, someone has done 13 years ahead, so I don't need to, don't need to write the
So
script.
my Taiwan. At least you have the guide rails, and anything that's unique or different from
And I
yours,
am your
you
speed
actually
dial.
know to get. Yes.
I am your speed.
I'm not her OBGYN, but basically having someone to soundboard things, which is always useful. And
Exactly.
that's why I think some of the mistakes we also make as women is, especially with first pregnancy, keeping it so much of a secret that you then make more and more mistakes. It's just yourself, your husband, or your midwife that knows what is going on, and then you try and hide it for almost too long, that by the time you start making mistakes that impact your career, your bonus, and everything, it's already too late. So I think those are some of the things that I think are slippery slopes, because people struggle with morning sickness and all that jazz, and they don't discuss with their manager, nothing. So the person just thinks you're underperforming, right? And I think I had, for my second pregnancy, I had a very, well, I would like call it morning sickness, but I could not just stand the smell of food, and I could not, and it was bad in the morning. But those are some of the stories I don't know if I shared this in the book, but I can clearly share that what I just did is having the conversation with my boss, and just said, you know what, I would come, and then we needed to be at morning meeting at 7 a.m. Right, yeah. So that means you need to leave by 6. So I'll be so exhausted in the morning, like if I did not sleep. So I will go for the morning meeting, at least show up for that one. Then I will go away for like 2 hours to just like nap. And then I'll work longer hours in the I'll just get the hours back in the evening. But that was a conversation, right, with the boss so that the deliverable would not sleep, but at the same time taking care of myself. So I was able to do that because I was more confident. I had a good, record already, delivery record, and but I could not do that for my first child. I had to do it for I was able to do it for my second child. So those are some of the things that we would discuss, and I'd like to also hear what questions people have about. But I have a question for you.
Sure.
In in planning to, start your family, you took your sweet time. Uh, so what are some of your fears, and how did you overcome them? How did you plan your pregnancy within your career? Yeah.
So, I mean, of course, like as you know, like starting a family is not to be taken like I said, like I'm not even going to lie about the fact that when you have people that have gone ahead of you, there's some considerations that you start to think about that is not just another thing to check in the box, right? Especially where we come from, culturally, there's this timeline expectation. Yeah, you go to school, you got a good job, you get married, and once you get married, it's like, yeah, start popping out the babies. But I can say categorically, and I even say this to my husband all the time, like when I see you, like, what you've done, I'm taking notes because I'm like, okay, based on all the learnings, like it's not just about popping the babies, but what do I even know, about myself? What do I know that I want to achieve when I have a child? Like, I think one of my greatest fears is I don't want to raise a kid that someone is going to see in society and be like, who raised you, right? So a lot of those things built up to the point where you're like, okay, I'm ready for this. Now, pertaining to career, right? So, and that's why, I asked the question about culture, right? Most of us on this audience, like we're Nigerians, where we come from, we know how it works. The workplace in Nigeria is largely influenced by, our culture.
Mhm.
Isioma and I were fortunate to work in an organization that has global presence. So a lot of that trickled into some of the policies, even though there was still that local effect. But what I can say is part of the decision now that I'm on the other side, I am in Canada where there's a federal maternity policy that sort of is superimposed on all your employers to begin with. So even people who are badly behaved still check their behaviors, but that's not to say there's still not that prejudice in the workplace, right? And so for me, so those are some of the things I started to think about even before. What are the policies that that at the government level that are available to support this journey? Because when you are thinking about career, beyond just the fear of, okay, will I, am I losing time, my mates will have gone ahead of me, there's also the financial bit that a lot of people don't talk about. There's the financial aspect of it that people don't talk about. And here, where I am, it's there's a favorable, quote unquote, and I put quote unquote, favorable is relative depending on how you plan it, but it gives you the opportunity, like Isioma said, if you want to stay at home 1 year with your baby, you can do that without the fear of losing your job. But then it's also, what is the trade-off, for me? And those were some of the conversations that also I had to navigate, when I actually started the journey. Um, but yeah, like, a lot of the tips that Isioma shared in her books, like it was more like, yes. Like I said, I already had exposed, so most of it was like, yes, yes, I agree. I totally agree. So, a lot of that has helped me feel, more comfortable thinking about my career versus starting motherhood. And to your point, Isioma, the elderly old man mentor, the thing you said, I can tell you that all of my mentors, like, and see very senior executives at work are like, look, enjoy it. Like, work is work. I know you're ambitious. I know you're this, but trust me, like this work is like when they say this work, no, they finish. Don't worry, you will go and come back. The work will go, you will see work, you will run, that kind of thing. So I think, sometimes they say these things, but I think the conditioning is also helpful. You also have to be conditioned enough to be able to get comfortable receiving some of those feedback, right? Because there can also be that that's what they'll say it because that's what they are supposed to say, but it is actually the truth. Like the work is not going anywhere. And the good thing that I would say, at least for where I am, or I don't know about Nigeria now, is your maternity leave, nobody can actually fire you. Like you
Yeah,
literally
I
cannot
think
lose
I
your
think I
job.
think I think that's a great, that's a great benefit, of some places. Some people, I don't know if how many people are here, but some people, when the government gives you that cover to say you can't be fired. In Nigeria, I think you may have to go to court if you want to get that clearance. There's no clear law saying you can't be fired. It just
Yes.
says you have to be given leave. I think that's the role of the government, right, to put that kind of cover. I know for places where for countries when they're trying to build their population, they have the incentive to do that. But in Nigeria, where we are just having children, is a lot of people, our population is not a problem. So they may not have an incentive to say, oh, stay at home because they'll be like, okay, one woman can have 8 kids, whatever. But I like what you said, and I want to really tease more about the financial planning aspect of a child. I didn't know then when I was planning, you really did not have a benchmark or a reference to say, okay, what's the cost of diaper? What's the cost of, daycare? We just feel, okay, you have the money as your salary comes, you go and you pay. I want to just check with you because I had my kids in the 20s, so I was not as structured and planned like you're having your children in your 30s. Like, what does that really look like? What are those key elements you think of when you're like, yes, we are ready to actually have a baby?
So again, like I said, and to be fair to you, Sioma, like your situation, like yeah, you might say you were less experienced, but your situation is a little different in that, you know, like here, like where I live, there's a little more predictability in terms of what your running costs are, right?
Mm,
Versus, I mean, I've lived on both sides, right? So there's a clear difference. That being said, that predictability then helps you to say, okay, I have a running cost based on, okay, there's no kids. Now there's a kid coming. What does that actually mean? What's the running cost? In fact, the truth is you don't really know the running cost for having a child because for them it is variable cost.
mhm,
It's a variable cost, but then you now have to apply a factor to say, okay, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean for your monthly running cost? Now, when I talk about finances, right, in Nigeria, right, when you go on mat leave for 3 months, which is 4 months, well, 4 months now, right, if I'm correct,
mhm,
you're paid. You still get your full pay. So you're not in deficit technically.
mhm,
It's not the case here, right? While the government says, oh yeah, you can take 1 year and just, enjoy yourself. Your employer is not obligated to pay you because technically they have to hire somebody to take your place if you're going to go away for that long, right? So they are not obligated to pay you. And what that means is you technically take a pay cut in simple terms. You are taking a pay cut and your running cost is going up,
mm,
right? So
mm,
all of those conversations you talk to with your spouse about, because then you're like, okay, what is my deficit? So the way I run it is I have of course a cash flow analysis for every month. And so now I did a quick and dirty, okay, what is my deficit for this period that I want to be off, right? How do I augment that? So of course the many months and years of savings, of course you're going to have to dip into your savings, but it has to be there to begin with. So all of those things, are the things you have to consider. And even though the government says, yeah, you can take 12 to 18 months, if you run the numbers and you're like, 18 months, I'm out, you can take less. Like, it's up to you. And that's okay, right? One of the things I'm also like, what's it? One of the things that, are also available is that flexibility, the accommodations in the workplace, right? I'm required to come into the office 4 days a week starting next year. I can ask for accommodation to say, look, like for this next 6 months, this your 4 days in the office, it's not going to work for me. I can get, work from home so that I can at least be a little more present so that I'm not spending time commuting. So that is how I have managed it. Like I said, some of it is going to be based on, your specific, circumstances, conditions, situations. But I think at the end of the day, it's just putting pen to paper to actually look at the numbers. Very important.
I
And
think
something in the
I
chat
think
is like, so I know some people are already resonating in the chat because like you have Excel, like me and Excel every day. I'm opening my Excel every day.
and then there's the point of, God will provide per child that comes, but there's still
I
that bit
agree.
of
I totally
planning.
agree. But of
There's a
course,
bit of there's a bit of planning required, and I think as soon as you, if not even when you conceive, but as soon as you decide that a child is part of the agenda, I think a clear conversation with your partner, if available, is, you know, can we start saving towards this thing? And because sometimes you can get money from different places. One is, oh, you're saving and investing and you're getting returns, and it helps you prepare for your child. But there's the other bit of scaling down where, oh, you were used to, when you're bored, you go into the mall and buy one bag. You have this ice cream here and there. You can decide, to scale down your life to accommodate this new life. So in terms of finance, that's it. Because some people get so anxious about the financial aspect of having a child. And I want to actually even say that it's a variable cost. And if your child is healthy, if your child is actually healthy, it's not so much that is scary. I think it's when they start really like going to school, having those fixed courses, it gets really bigger. But when they are babies, really, the child, I always say that that cost is variable, but it depends on you because down to the type of formula they would have, the kind of clothes they would wear, whether they take natural food or all those organic press from the supermarket. It's the parent's choice that makes the child more expensive or less. What children really need is just a good shelter, warm clothes to cover up their body. They don't care about designers, and then they just want food. So even pap that then we used to think, oh, maybe it's for the poor people, but it's actually very nutritious for children. So I think sometimes the parents inflate that cost of a child. At least as children, but when they start growing, they have fixed costs. And then of course it comes to you, the schools that we go to, but we are not yet there. We're still in the maternity. The baby is in your belly. You're going to work, and we've talked about policies and all. But Taiwo, I have
so I do
one.
want to say something, Isioma,
Yes.
though. On the finance, I'm not even going to lie that, as much as I was like, yeah, I'm ready, there's still always that um anxiety about finances.
Mm-hmm.
But the same when you think about any other thing around financial planning, just put pen to paper first. Like until if you're like ruminating and recycling it in your head is actually when it stresses you out. Put it to paper so at least you see. I think the moment I was able to do that, even though it looked like a really big number, because I put it down on paper, it's like, okay, we'll tackle it. So I think the thing I just want to say is like, I don't think that there's anybody that, I mean, except of course you're a trust fund baby or something. I don't think that there's anybody who's about to get on this journey who doesn't get it so that, oh my God, like it's not
Exactly.
BAU,
That
it's
is
not
where
business as usual.
it's
But
not.
like the
Definitely.
moment you put pen to paper, say, okay, what am I dealing with here? It actually gets it's easier. And so now like I think I'm a lot like I have a firmer like plan on how to manage some of the deficits that are going to come because I'm going to get into deficits. But I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah. So thanks, Taiwo. There's a question in the box from MFR. When you tell your manager you are pregnant, hmm, I
Hmm.
have had two different experiences on that, and then I have an advice. So my first pregnancy, I told my manager when I was like 5 months. And my manager's response really made me cry. Oh my God, how do I manage this now? My second pregnancy, it was my manager that told me go and do a pregnancy test because I think I went to work and I was just like, I don't know, I was just complaining. That rather, he said, when you go home, go and do a pregnancy test.
Oh my God.
And so by the time I went home, I came back, I'm like, oh, I'm actually pregnant. Okay, but I had a really good manager. Then, but my advice is depending on your workplace. So, like what um Taiwo shared, if you know you have a workplace where they are professional, there's been, they have good policies and everything. I think the responsible thing to do is once your pregnancy is viable, maybe at 12 weeks, 20 weeks, inform your boss because it then helps with planning and you can start having the support that you need, all that. Some people may have concerns about their boss. They know their boss is always saying, this women, you people, if you have a boss that's always that women thing, it's not safe for you to just expose yourself. So I think that you should really make it, if the circumstance is ideal, once your pregnancy is viable and you can really work a plan with your boss, I think you should inform your boss so that you guys can plan together and plan towards your handover. Taiwo, what do you think?
So yeah, I think you're right. Again, environment is like you have to read the room. And there's something you mentioned earlier on around, there's it's almost like a chicken and egg situation where it's like, okay, how much credibility do I have already? Like, if you're somebody that people already know that you're a high performer, there's a certain level of performance, of which of course by default, I would think everybody wants to aspire to, whether you're trying to be a mom or not. Because I find that that might also be some of the concerns and biases that come in. And even, even us as women, as leaders, those things might come in. Maybe someone, a female on your team is already, you know, sub-performing, not meeting
And then she now comes to say,
expectations.
"I'm pregnant."
And not even that, like she now comes and is like, I'm pregnant, right? So what Isioma said is true. You have to read the room. You have to know, the environment. Of course, it has to be viable pregnancy. In my experience, right? Of course, because for me, I think the one thing I'd always had in my mind is, look, you better create that credibility for yourself in such a way that if something is not going well, then people know that something is fundamentally wrong, right? And so for me,
Or something has fundamentally changed, not wrong.
changed, not wrong. Yeah, thank you for that
Mhm.
question. So it has fundamentally changed. And I think that's what happened with me. So mine happened at a time where my team was going through a major restructuring. I think I told this young at the time, I was reporting into a new VP. I'd never worked with the guy before, and I'm like, at this timing. So it was a very weird time, and I'm like, okay. And then, like Isioma said, first trimester, you have tired a lot. Like, one of my other like immediate senior colleague was always like, "You look so tired," and I'm just like, "You don't even understand what's going on." But so typically my workplace policy doesn't even require you to tell anybody if you don't want to. Actually, all you have to do is minimum 4 weeks notice to go on maternity leave, because what they consider matter is that you can either be, surrogate parent or whatever, right? But of course, I personally, I'm like, I don't even think that's fair to the boss. Like 4 weeks before you're not saying I'm pregnant, I'm going. So what I did was, of course, read the room. Um, and then I think it was at my mid-year conversation when people start saying, media conversation, and then I think at the point where they're like, oh, you guys need to start coming to office myself, I need to open my mouth to in case me I cannot miss these people 2 days a week so that you know that I'm not being insolent. So it was more like I had to make a decision on the timing, and my motive for sharing at that point in time. And it was largely to say, okay, manage your expectations based on where I am, but of course,
Mhm.
I'll still get the work done. So I think to Isioma's point, you always have to read the room. If there's a policy, there's a policy. You have to stick to your organization's policy. But if there's no policy, I think you have to read the room. But again, the earlier, the better. I think it's only fair to your boss and your team that they have that prior notice so that they can prepare to backfill or fill the gap while you're gone. Either ways, I think that's the way I would just approach it.
Yeah. Thanks, Taiwo. I think it was, I will never forget crying after my first boss. MF, I hope that answered your question. Any more questions? But while people are typing their questions, I really always remember how my first boss responded, and he was quite a good guy. But I think he just showed his shock, and that shock sent me into like an anxious spot. I was crying, and then I think at the one point my boss was like, my husband was just like, "Is it that you don't want this baby or not?" Well, I really wanted the baby, but I just felt like if it was disruptive to even, the work. But that's what you get when you're in a male-dominated workplace, and when you're in a role that requires a lot of physical strength and presence, beyond your brain, your mental intelligence. And when you also want to break the mold, I remember someone when I came to work told me, "Ah, you're wearing skirt, you're wearing a gown, you're not ready yet." So when you already have those kind of workplaces where they're telling you those kind of things, then you're now pregnant, so it's almost like, okay, okay, just give me a tray. Let me serve you guys drinks at the office. Like, I'm no longer an engineer. So that can make you feel that way. And that's why we need to be very conscious of little words, little jokes in the office can actually build into something really, um, really
Before
dangerous.
we Sorry, Isioma, before we continue the conversation and questions, please, if you haven't filled out the poll that has just popped up on the screen, please take out time to fill out the poll. Let's test the pulse in the room to see where you're joining from and, what stage you're at. It'd be great to just get some of those, questions from those many perspectives. It's a whole spectrum, actually.
In the I really want to see the poll outcome. I'm seeing something here about how long is safe for maternity leave so as not to disrupt training in an adverse way. So I want to assume that this is like a structured training program, or you're in a multi-year training program, because I was pregnant during my 3-year training program when I just started, and I had this concern. I don't know, Chineye, can you unmute to explain what you want so that we don't answer off point? I can't hear, she's not unmuted. Okay, so personally, I had this thing. What I did and what made the difference is support systems for me. So immediately I got back from from having the baby, the trainings I needed to go for, there was one when my baby was 5 months. I had to travel for a week. She was on breast milk. So I used that period to wean her. So my mom was my support system. I took the babies to my mom, and I didn't travel with the baby, but I went for 1 week. And by the time I came back, we started the weaning journey. So yes, I would have wanted 6 months exclusive, but I did like 5 months because of that training. So there are some, conscious compromises I made. Another one, I also had the training, the same pregnancy, I had the training. It was very intense, but it didn't require traveling, but it required doing a lot of assignments and all that. I had to resume. So I could not go. Those are the kind of trainings that you cannot be on maternity leave and go on, because some companies are like that strict. You're on maternity leave, you're off the system, all that. So you can't be attending training while maternity leave. So in terms of how long is it okay to go away, I think just weigh where you are, where your company is. If you're someone that has a unique skill and you know that they can wait for you, please take the time you need. But if you know that you're just entry level, or you are in something that can be easily replaced, and you're not comfortable to be out of work, you can actually break your maternity leave. What does that mean? I think sometimes some people have 4 months and they will take like 2, 3 months first and then take another 1 month, just because they don't want to, get totally cut off. But Taiwo, what do you think about this one? I know you haven't gone yet, but that's my offer.
No, like you nailed the point. Like, context will also matter, right? To your point, like I also went through the same program you went, although I was not maternity leave, all that wasn't the program for me. So again, it's what is the organization, it's where you are, what's the organization policy. And this is, I think that's where, when Isioma's course, taking Isioma's course and reading the book, it gives you that guardrail because different organizations will have different policies. I don't know where you are, Chine, if you're in Nigeria or another country, or which organization you're in. All of those things are the things you probably have to take into consideration because then you're able to then ask the right questions on what your options are, right? Because you need to know what options are available to you, but at least you already would have an idea to say, okay, at least I can ask these questions. And I think that's to the point I made earlier, is knowing, like, being having that awareness to be able to even engage is usually the starting point, right? Because I personally would not recommend that because of one training you should not, 1 month maternity leave, you should carry yourself back. So you
Indeed.
first have that conversation. Okay, what is the policy? What are my options? And sometimes what I found is some of these companies, depending on how flexible they are, you might actually have thought about, okay, I have all of these options, how flexible are they, right? So at least having that, self-awareness, confidence helps you ask the right questions, have these conversations on what your options are. But ultimately, it's going to depend on, the specific organization, the policy, the environment, and
Actually,
what is
well,
possible.
I actually feel like it actually depends on the mother. If you're well, you know, I think what maternity leave, people think maternity leave is about your career and about the work, but it's actually a time for you to recover from what you've just put
Exactly.
your body through. So it's not, don't think like your maternity leave is how fast can I get back to work? It's how fast can I recover and be able to function for myself and this new being that I came for. I know some people, and that's a privilege to think about it, but I think that's the minimum privilege because people think, oh, it's because if you don't have money, I need to go back to work and earn money. But just think about your life. Some women actually die giving birth. So you have to really think about your health, your wellness before, like, okay, how you resume the training and every other thing. Someone was discussing with me about how after birth, she then developed, high blood pressure for life, basically high blood pressure for life. Some people have diabetes for life. Some people become anxious. Some people develop mental illness. So it can be life transforming in positive and also unfortunately some, I won't say negative, some unexpected ways. So I would say that as much as you were trying to get back into the rhythm, let's spend time to listen to your body, listen to yourself, even what's in your head. Because one thing that I struggled with was trying to fit into my plan, not giving myself what my body needed, but fit into the plan I already had before I even had the baby. To basically say, when I give birth, after 3 months, I'll be back. And I wanted to just keep to
So,
those dates. But actually, you don't have to keep to those dates. You don't have to keep to those. You want to finish masters by the time you're 30, you want to do this. I was trying to like really squeeze myself into the things that I wanted to do before I had the baby. I mean, so, but when the child comes, just really seeing that my life is actually not the same and developing a schedule and adjusting timelines to accommodate the fact that you have changed and you've brought a human into the world would actually make you healthier and be more sustainable. So you won't burn out and you would also, be a cheerful mother.
yeah.
A
Not
cheerful
an
mother.
angry one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually something in the chat, right? Like going away from work, and I'm actually familiar with this, like something around about keeping in touch day, right? Where you can actually like go in to the place of work. So maybe it's a training. So again, like I always say contextual, especially because if you worked in Nigeria and you worked across the borders, it might not be the case where you are, but explore. You can actually have days where you can actually go in, keep in touch, just to like feel connected, and that's okay, right? Like still stay connected. It's okay, what's going on, what's the training and all of that. And investing in postpartum help. I think that's the one thing that we're not what's the word? It's not a concept for most of us, right? But like it's totally okay, like, paying for things that can help you postpartum, outsourcing what you can outsource so you can focus on yourself and the baby. But trust me, like I think the fundamental thing that I've learned, from all the people that I've seen go through maternity and career is the work no they finish.
Yes, the work, well, you will come back to the work, and I think we can even talk some more as in the work you do, as long as you are healthy, try and do great work. And there's something I was telling someone that sometimes your colleagues will be gisting and you can't afford to be gisting because you have a shorter time. So you just need to like do the work because you know you're going to be away for some time. Sometimes some people are like, oh, let's go have some drinks here and there. Or, they're having smoke time, they're having coffee time, whatever. You are just trying to maximize your hours to push out stuff because you're not going to be around, because those things at the end of the day count for those things count. And I think one thing to just add is, I know most people like thinking that, oh, your husband is going to be your support system, your husband, your mother, but the definition of support system would expand. I think in our next session we're having in 3 days' time, we're going to talk more about policies and support systems, but it's a very essential reality to embrace when you're planning for your pregnancy, that though it's yourself and your husband that made the baby, when the baby comes into the world, you would, and the baby may need more than, the partner themselves. You may need more people to recruit, more people to give your family what you need to thrive through that season.
So we
And
have about 5 minutes more, but there was a
yeah,
particular question I wanted, and I probably will not have enough time to like, talk about this one, but I just wanted to put it out there and, Isioma, what your thoughts are. Like we're talking about career ambitions, growing, and I think one thing that, in all of what we are trying to achieve, that I don't know that people have said it
there's this
enough.
little girl on the that is making me laugh. There's a little girl, Kathy Alina. I don't know if the mom knows that she's the face of the baby is on the. So I want to remove her face, just in case the mom doesn't know her face is on this on the public call. Okay, so I've done that.
Okay,
Okay.
so there's this thing that I feel like maybe we as moms in the career workforce have not comfortable setting, and I can understand it because you don't want to say it out loud, so people will not keep re-echoing it. But it's around the fact that, you know, what do you think about the fact that in reality, the reality of it is that there will be, for many of us, there's going to be that what's it called, trade-off with, because I went on maternity leave once, twice, three times, especially for us who have to go for 1 year multiple times. There's that high probability that the people who didn't go will probably rise faster than you are because they're there. And being actually okay with that, that there's just some things that it's not about systems, it's not about performance, is just what it is. Like I've been ruminating this thought in my head, and the fact that at some point you're going to be like, this is the time for this, and I need to be okay with the fact that it may seem like some of my peers who aren't going will move faster because while I took 3 maternity leaves, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, these guys, were there the full 3 years. So I just wanted to get your perspective on that.
I think what helps me cope with that, in my first pregnancy, I didn't cope with that. I really competed with the guys to the extent that I actually graduated from that 3 year program before all the guys that were there and didn't go maternity leave. So, guys, is it that because there was something about like proving to yourself that you can do it, but what was the cost of it? It was so much, so stressful, a lot of anxiety, all that. And remember, it was within the first 3 years of joining a company. Um, but I look at things now through a spectrum of high case, worst case. The worst case, if you can live with the worst case, then you are fine. The worst case is that you're going to be 2 steps, let's imagine 2 steps below them. And the high case is that you're actually going to be their boss. But it's not going to be their boss immediately you come back from maternity leave. It may probably be their boss in 5 years' time. And then there's the middle case that they are 1 step ahead of you and then you're able to get back. What really helps really to achieve that middle case, especially if you are not one that decided, oh, I want to take 1 year or 2 years to just chill my baby, I take my family needed it, I needed this time. These are conscious decisions, because when you make the conscious decision and you have embraced the low case that, okay, they may have 2 promotions ahead of me, but you know that what you took the time for is what more than it, then you don't end up being a victim. It didn't happen to you. It's I decided, I chose this, and I paid this cost. Unlike when you've not consciously thought of it, you were just at home, you just feel like, I want to take 2 more months. Oh, add 4 more months, add this. And then you just say, top up, bam, and top up. And then you come back to work and they're your boss, you will not be angry and feeling like a victim. Now, what some of my friends did, and what I also advise is during your maternity leave, even if it's extended, if they're keeping in touch, they use it. And then if you can just do a course, like even if it's AI so and so, or digitalization so and so, or project management stuff, if you can do a course that keeps you, that is still relevant, right, and keeps you engaged, so that when you come back to the workforce, especially if you took 1 year or 2 months or 2 years away, you are not just coming with, you don't have much to like, you're coming with something besides your baby, right? You're coming to say, okay, I have this new skill and everything. Remember that beyond the promotion, these people too would have been attending trainings, right? And all. So that is if your mental health can accommodate it. So there's that space. One of my friends did a course in Harvard during her maternity leave just to keep her going, right? And making sure that she has something. And right now she's a director somewhere else. People that were with, they can't even see the back of her. I'm sure there'll be 2 levels below her, something. So the truth about it is that just that conscious thing, as much, don't think about stereotype this, think about yourself. What can I do? Like I said, my first child, I actually went, I was like, no, I don't want to be behind these guys, and I'm going to, really do what it takes. And of course, I had a lot of people in my helping me with my child's bottle, all that, so that I could read and all. I got distinction in the course. I also graduated before everyone that didn't go on maternity leave. So it depends on what your firepower can carry. Don't try to over push yourself. And when you want to take a cost, weigh it and say, okay, this is the cost I'm paying for it. This is the investment I'm doing in my family, and it's worth it.
Super. I think we can go on and on and on and on about this, but unfortunately, we have limited time currently. So thank you, Isioma, for, sharing a little bit. I actually enjoyed having this conversation. I actually had some to-do lists after this conversation that even you don't know that you've given to me. But like I said, at the beginning of the call, there's the Navigating Maternity course. There's the book that is going to be released later this month. The QR code is up on the screen. If it's something you're interested in, to give you a little more insights and tools, to arm yourself with, or you want to share with people in your circle who are getting ready for this journey. For those of you who have gone through it, like Isioma as well, right? I strongly encourage you to, get the word out there as well, because I think that, again, a lot of, like, knowledge, like people say knowledge is power, but that is really what it is. That's what gives you power. What you don't know, you can't ask for. Second bit is, they say your career is in your hands. That is the truth. It is cliche, but it's the truth. As much as we are advocating for, more systemic structures that support motherhood, policies that support motherhood. I can tell you for free that I have seen where policies exist and people still do not use it. They still do not even maximize it, right? So, you know, get into this maternity conversations with that perspective as well, right? Like, driving power is in your hands, knowledge is in the power, and I think that is what Isioma has done with the Navigating Maternity course. The books she has put out there, they are tools. They're not like, I don't think that, I don't want to call them self-help books. They are tools, like they're guidelines that you can actually tailor to your peculiar specific situation, irrespective of what country, irrespective of what organization, irrespective of what policy that impacts or affects you. Um, I know we have one more question, but unfortunately,
No, no, we
we're
can't
at
take it. Yeah.
time. There's two
Tommy,
more
Tommy, I'm
sessions.
going to answer the question in the next newsletter. So they'll put the how to subscribe for the newsletter. I would answer it on the newsletter, don't worry. And I give that to you. Then we also have a session coming up in 4 days' time. Join, ask this question. I think it's also relevant for that because we're going to be talking about support systems, handover, all those kind of stuff. Okay?
Well, if this one, my own is anyway, I don't want to be selfish, but I think one question that, because I also manage a product and application that have technically become the SME on, like everybody comes to me. And when somebody asks me, oh, so who is going to take over? How they cope? I actually tell them that that is not my father's problem. I'm going on maternity leave. I have a boss who is his responsibility. That's not my father's problem. I didn't become a SME overnight. Me too, I took over the portfolio. Another person should learn the work. Sailor. See you guys later. So, but I think Isioma will answer this question in a little more detail in her newsletter. Thank you everyone for joining. And thank you, Isioma, for all the great work. Thanks everyone for your comments, your contributions in the chat, for engaging, and I'm hoping that these conversations, grow into something bigger that impacts a lot more people, that are going through this journey. And hopefully at some point we can get our men here as well, to come and
Indeed,
share
please,
their.
for the session coming up on the 15th, please come with your husbands, invite your husbands and your friends, please, because that we are talking about support systems, policies, all that. It's going to be interesting. So see you all. Thank you to my
Thank you so much.
team. Thank you to my
Okay.
sisters, my support system, and the ones in the chat box. Thank you, and thank you to all my friends and those that don't know me. We would connect again in 3 days' time where we're talking about support system, the role of partners, and policies with another speaker. Thank you so much, Taiwo, and we are rooting for our baby.
Send phones.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.